All right, we are back here on the Just and the Suffering podcast, our annual tradition, doing our NFL Week 1 recap with this guy. The great Joe Dalwizio is here. You've heard on the Sharp Cheddar podcast. Joe, how are you?
Mike, I'm doing well. Thanks, as always, for having me on. How are you?
Doing okay, considering both our teams lost in Week 1, and mine is probably more disappointing than yours.
I was going to say we are sharing some similar feelings after Week 1, both starting 0-1. I'm a little bit more confident, I think, as a Packers fan. As for you, I don't know where that confidence level is right now after Week 1.
Not high, I'll say that much.
I don't blame you for that at all, especially with Joe Flacco leading the way. But we could get into that in more detail in just a few minutes, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely here. And I just want to start out here with Week 1. I mean, I don't know how many games you watched. I was bouncing around a bit at the Jets on, Giants on, some red zones. Obviously, check out most of the primetime games here. But I feel like in general, like the games were like interesting, but the quality of football was bad, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's funny. I thought it was a lot of sloppy football and a ton of surprises. One thing that I'm very happy about, I'm glad that I'm not in a survivor pool because there would be 100% chance that I would have been eliminated for sure with the results from Week 1. But I thought it was a lot of sloppy football. I think part of that is you got a lot of starters that just don't play in the preseason, and it shows.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you looked at around some of these games where it was like the Colt game was sloppy. You had the Patriots didn't look good. You had a lot of issues. So that early window, I was like sitting there looking like, is anybody playing quarterback well in this window?
No, and I mean, like the 49ers and Bears, obviously that was a monsoon, but that was like a disaster of a game. The Steelers getting away with a win in overtime against the Bengals. Jets, Ravens, I mean, the Jets couldn't do anything. Maybe one of the more exciting games, and I'll be honest, I didn't even have my eyes on it, was the Jaguars against the Commanders. And the Colts ending out in a tie, like against the Texans, and forget about the Giants upsetting the Titans. It was all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely was here. We'll start with the Jets. I've weighed in a lot on this podcast and do more than a couple minutes on the pick segment here. We have a Jets guest on for the picks here. So give me your takeaway on the Jet performance.
So it's hard to get a true grasp on what the Jets are going to be, especially early on when you have Joe Flacco playing quarterback. For the sanity of Jet fans out there that are listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume things are going to get a lot better with Zach Wilson under center. With that being said, though, Mike White should be playing on Sunday.
Yes.
There is zero excuse as to why Joe Flacco should be the starting quarterback in Week 2. The offense was non-existent. You've invested in the offense. You brought in tight ends. You used early draft pick on a wide receiver. And it just, where were they? They weren't there in Week 1. And, I got to point out, Robert Saleh coming out saying how proud he was of how the team fought, kind of embarrassing. Like, you didn't fight at all. You weren't in this game at all. So I'm going to knock him for that one for sure.
Oh, like I've said plenty on Saleh. I'm going to say more in a little bit about the receipt comment here. But the thing that I think you're right here is like, Joe Flacco is not giving his team a chance to win the football game. I mean, Mike White, yes, he had a flash in the pan last year, but with how bad their line looked, and they're down probably, they had the rookie Max Mitchell at right tackle, Laken Townsend looked at most of that game here. You want to get a little more mobility at quarterback to give you a chance to extend some plays.
100%. And at the end of the day, as any team, you want to win games.
Yeah.
Like that is goal number one. Mike White gives you a much better chance of winning a game than Joe Flacco. And I think part of the reason why we're not going to see Mike White is because the Jets are trying to avoid any controversy at all once Zach Wilson comes back. Because if Mike White starts and plays lights out, you know that the first game that Zach Wilson comes back, if he doesn't outperform what White was doing or play superior, the Jets fans are going to give him the business. And I think in a mental state, the Jets want to avoid that at all costs. But, I mean, goal number one is winning football games. So you're going to trot out whoever's going to win you football games.
Yeah, especially at this point in the regime here, because, I mean, this is year 4 for Joe Douglas, year 2 for Saleh here. At some point, you got to win.
Oh, 100%. And you invested, right? You invested, but you rarely saw those guys that you invested in. You saw a really good performance offensively. I think you got to give kudos to Michael Carter, showing that he could do it from, running the ball as well as receiving. Corey Davis showed up, but I mean, you invested early in Garrett Wilson. You didn't see much. Elijah Moore didn't see much. The tight ends nowhere to be found. You made Joe Flacco attempt 59 passes. That should never happen. Flacco is nowhere near where he once was, and having him throw the ball 59 times is just a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely is, and it looked like the Giants were on their way to a disaster. In the first half, they were really badly outplayed in Tennessee. It looked like they could have been down like 3 scores. Then they hang on there. They come out, play well in the second half here. You think again, Daniel Jones was the big pick. This game's over. They come back, they win the football game here, and I loved watching Brian Daboll go for 2, implore his team to win the game. What do you take away from what the Giants did?
Well, I mean, first off, this would have been my survivor pick. I would have went Titans all the way, no doubt about it. So my take on the Giants winning was, holy bleep. I can't believe they just did this. That's one I definitely didn't expect, but you got to give a lot of credit to Brian Daboll, because what you saw is already the start of a culture change for the New York Giants. Credit to him for getting his team to believe in him so quickly. I mean, they could have easily laid down after that first half performance, but they came back and fighting. The passion, the emotion that you saw from the Giants throughout has been lacking for years. So it's tremendous to see that still be a thing within that organization. It's also awesome to see a guy like Saquon Barkley come back, be healthy. Now it's a question, can he stay healthy? Can he continue to play at the level that he played in week 1? One thing that I really loved about this game, and I'm sure you've seen this by now, is Daboll going over to Daniel Jones and giving him the business after throwing an INT, saying, I don't know what he said, but essentially you can't make that mistake. I mean, that's coaching 101, and, to see that is a step in the right direction. Now, do I think the Giants are a playoff team? Absolutely not. But to show fight the way that they did in week 1 certainly shows change in the overall culture for that organization, and that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's definitely positive. You're a Giant fan. You're very pumped up because you haven't started out with a win in 6 years. That's definitely a positive here. And you look at that homestand and say, Carolina's coming in. They didn't look great against the Browns. Dallas coming in without Dak Prescott. And you got the Bears coming in. They don't look great either. So I'm sure there are Giant fans out there right now saying, hey, 4-0 is in play here. We could, get out to a very fast start. I would say to you guys, great win. Remember how bad you look in the first half, so none of these are guarantees here.
No, if there's one thing that's certain, there's no win that's a guarantee in the NFL. You can play the schedule game all you want, but it's going to be a different outcome all the time. With that being said, you're gonna really survive or not survive based on Daniel Jones. Can he take that next step in his career, which he hasn't been able to do? Is Dable the guy to fix that? And if not, I can guarantee you that they're going to move away from Jones in the off season. But kudos to them getting it done, because this is definitely a team that you didn't expect this in week 1.
No, you certainly didn't here. And obviously, the big news from week 1 is the injury here that Dak Prescott suffered on Sunday Night Football. He has the hand injury, requires surgery. Timeline is supposedly 6 to 8 weeks. He's saying he might beat it. They're not putting him on IR yet. But even when Dak was on the field, the Cowboys did not look good. So what do you think about what we saw here?
Yeah, if I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm really worried. I mean, this injury for the Cowboys is huge. You already had questions going into the season regarding the offensive line. You lose a few weapons in Amari Cooper and some other players on that offense. Without Dak, this team is nowhere near a playoff team, and they could be in serious trouble. I know I saw some reports about Jerry Jones saying he could be back as soon as 4 weeks. I mean, I don't think that's the safe play, rushing this guy back. You've invested a lot of money in him. Obviously you don't want to tank, but at the same time, I'm not for rushing who's supposed to be your star quarterback. Without him, this season is pretty much over. You could say that about any true franchise quarterback, though, in any team in the NFL.
Yeah, that's for sure here. And let's go rapid fire on some of these other games here. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you were locked in the Packers-Viking game here, so I didn't get to check out unless I was on the Giants more. So what really happened here at the Packers? What went wrong?
I mean, I've been saying this when it comes to the Packers all off-season and ever since they lost Devontae Adams. There will be growing pains for the Green Bay Packers. as a team overall, specifically with their offense. I mean, this is probably one of the first time in Rodgers' career that he doesn't have that go-to guy. He's always had someone, whether it was Devontae Adams, pre-Devontae Adams, it was Jordy Nelson. So this offense is nowhere near the same. So, number one, you look back at this game, it's inexcusable for a guy like Aaron Jones to only get 8 touches. You draft a guy in Christian Watson, he needs to be better. I'm sure by now, even if you didn't watch the game, you saw the replay, first play of the game, Christian Watson gets back behind Patrick Peterson and just drops what would have been a wide open touchdown. Now, I'm not saying that if he makes that play, the Packers win the game. No, but could there be a different result? Sure, but that game does not. The tail of that game was dictated right off the bat. It's unfortunate. Like I said, there will be growing pains. At the same time, credit to the Vikings. They deserved it. They coached up well. They got stops when needed, and the Packers couldn't figure out what to do with Justin Jefferson, which is a little surprising. And overall, I think it's just surprising that here we are again, the start of a new season, and Matt LaFleur is coming out saying his team was not prepared well enough for Week 1. That's inexcusable. It's actually embarrassing at this point that this continues to happen Week 1. But we saw what happened last year after they were a no-show against the Saints.
Yeah, let's go to Kansas City, Arizona for a minute, because obviously the Chiefs without Tyreek Hill had no problem with the ball down the field. I feel like the big takeaway here is that the Cardinals got some problems here. I think that team has a lot of issues.
Well, you know what? First, with the Chiefs side of things, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, I'm not breaking any news here. He's the real deal. He loses his number one target, and this offense still doesn't skip a beat. I mean, you talk about a team being prepared and a guy playing with wide receivers that he's not used to in Juju Smith, MVS, some mixing in some rookies there as well in the backfield. I mean, this team is legit. As long as Mahomes is healthy and starting, the Chiefs are always going to be Super Bowl contenders. As for Arizona, I think this is really starting to show you how overrated they have been. They started undefeated, last year, and then things fell apart. I don't think they're nearly as close to as good as that undefeated team, and they have a lot of holes.
They do, and remember, they're the Hard Knocks in-season team, so we might start to see the unraveling of this team going down the stretch on HBO.
Of course, and I'm sure that's going to be somewhat of a fun distraction to deal with as well out in Arizona.
Oh, yeah, absolutely here. Raiders-Chargers, that game felt like it's fun. Chargers do get revenge for the Week 18 loss here. I think my big takeaway from this game is that the Raider offensive line is problematic.
Yeah, the Raider offensive line is problematic, but you could already tell that they love their new weapon in Devontae Adams. If this offense could put it together and they figure out how to protect Carr and that offensive line gets improved, there's weapons all around. Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. There's a lot of guys that could get the ball and make some plays for this Raider team, so don't really count them out just yet. On the flip side, Justin Herbert, another quarterback stud in this league. And if he continues to progress the way that he has, the Chargers will be in great hands, not only this year, but years to come.
Yeah, absolutely here. Go to the Bengals Steelers here. Obviously, this game took a weird turn early because obviously Joe Burrow has the 4 first-half turnovers, turns over 5 times in the game. They come back, nearly win it. McPherson ends up missing the extra point, misses a field goal in overtime. Boswell missing one in overtime, wins the game here. Like, this TJ Watt injury, this is probably one of the wildest games of the entire day.
Yeah, first of all, this is another one. I did not think Mitch Trubisky would be leading the Steelers to victory. I didn't think Mitch Trubisky would get a victory this season, but that's how I feel about him as a quarterback. Shows how much I know. But listen, Steelers have a solid D. Who knows now? You got to keep an eye out on the official news with the Watt injury, because if he misses significant time, that's going to be a huge loss. On the flip side, for the Bengals, I don't panic just yet. You may call it a Super Bowl hangover, but this team has way too much talent to play that poorly. You got to you got to look for them to bounce back quickly after this one and get things going. Kind of reminds me of how bad Green Bay got shellacked Week 1 last year against the Saints, and how they ended up in the regular season.
Yeah, of all teams that lost Week 1, I'm the least worried about the Bengals. I feel like they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fine too. Again, it could be a combination of Burrow, getting back out there after being injured, and it's a divisional matchup. You never know how these go, no matter what point in the season or no matter what the projected records for both of these teams are.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last big game I get to before I get to what happened last night here, Patriots-Dolphins here. I feel very good about that underpick of the Patriots I made, because They did not look good. I don't care what Bill Belichick says how the game was close. It was just a couple of plays here and there. You look at the stats, blah, blah, blah. Like, the Patriots did not look good.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. We are what I think looking at one of the worst Patriots teams in a very long time. And I think it's going to be a long season for New England, something that we're not used to seeing over the last decade or so. As for Miami, Mike McDaniel did an excellent job in his first game as a head coach of the Dolphins. Tua looks solid. I think McDaniel knows what he is doing in terms of working with Tua and being smart and making it easy for Tua. He has the talent around him that he doesn't have to be, excellent, but make it easy for him, and the guys around will be able to respond.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I'll touch on last night, obviously, because I was actually at the Met game. I didn't get to see much of this, but I was driving home. I heard the ending of this thing. Like, I don't know how Nathaniel Hackett misplayed it so badly with the 4th and 5 there. You trade 5 draft picks and 3 players for Russell Wilson, and you decide, you know what? I'm going to bleed the clock, kicks a 64-yard field goal, try and win the game instead of putting it in the hands of my all-pro quarterback here. I have no idea what the hell was going on over there.
I mean, everybody is screaming at Nathaniel Hackett, and this is your famous case of it's your first time coaching, you're a rookie head coach, and you wanna prove something out there. You overthink things. Twice in the red zone. On nearly the 1 or the 2 yard line, you are running on 3rd down or 4th down at a shotgun run play. It's just inexcusable. He was horrible all game. The Broncos have no business losing a game to Geno Smith and Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks wanted that game badly, and it showed.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they outplayed them. They outworked that entire game. The Broncos were, I think, from what I could gather, really just like, hey, we're the Broncos. We'll show up and we'll win the game. And they didn't really put the effort in that Seattle did.
Yeah, you did get a sense of that. And what else was crazy is that, even though the Seahawks outplayed the Broncos, at any point that game was so close score-wise that the Broncos could have really turned it around and ran away with it, but they never got over that hump. And it was just bad play calling, bad decision-making consistently throughout the night for the Broncos.
Absolutely here. Let's do some roundups here. So who do you think had the best win in week 1? Who came out looking the best in your opinion?
I mean, again, I think you got to go with the Giants and their upset victory. No one thought that was happening. I mean, I don't think there's a single Giant fan out there that was confident in that one happening. But overall, I think as a team that is going to be a threat come January, come February, you got to be the Chiefs. Got to be the Chiefs. They look flawless, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'll go. One I had, I think it's the team who won first. Buffalo going out and beating the Rams, not just beating them, like really dominating that football game, seeing what their pass rush did to Matthew Stafford. Like, that's as impressive a performance I've ever seen. Like, somebody go on the road against the defending champ.
Totally agree with that one in Buffalo. What was impressive about that one is all those turnovers in the first half and then leaving the Rams to goose egg in the second half offensively. I mean, tremendous effort on both sides of the ball.
All right, let's go the other way here. Who had the worst week 1? Who had the worst loss?
This is tough. I think I want to throw this towards I want to throw the Bengals in this category, but I'm looking at the AFC West and I think the Broncos losing was a big one for them just because of how the division is. But overall, I think you got to group these guys here. So I'm throwing the Rams in this category. I'm throwing the Packers in this category, the Cowboys, and the Broncos. It's hard for me to pick one of those teams, but if you're the Rams, that's not how you want to show up after winning a Super Bowl. If you're the Packers, you're a team that's talked about every single season being a Super Bowl contender. The Cowboys are always in that conversation. Obviously, the bad news and the injury to Dak Prescott lowers them in that ranking for the worst loss of Week 1. And the Broncos, man, you make that deal to bring in Russell Wilson, and that's how you look. Yikes.
I'll throw one out here because obviously, I mean, I haven't touched the fact how ridiculous it was that the AFC South somehow went without a win when 2 of the teams play each other. So that's one thing I think that's absolutely absurd. But I'm going to throw the Falcons out here. I mean, they were dominating the Saints for most of that game. They let that game completely slip away. And this is a team that's going to be very bad. You have a chance to win a game like that at home over a division rival, you got to close it.
Yeah, you know what? The reason why I wasn't surprised there is because of the expectation that we have of the Atlanta Falcons and how poorly they're going to be. So they did exactly what you thought they were going to do.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, in terms of the AFC South thing, how wild is that? I don't think I could ever imagine a scenario where you have 4 teams in one division play, 2 of them play each other, you have 0 wins in the division.
Absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah,
mind blowing. Did not expect that for week one. Definitely didn't have that in the parlay.
all right. So, in terms of the look ahead, we'll look at week 2 a little bit here. Of all our teams that lost, who is in the most trouble if they're 0-2 right now?
So I'm going to throw. I think the Bengals bounce back, but I'm going to throw them in this category as a team that would just made it to the Super Bowl. You don't want to start the next season 0-2. You start 0-2, you all the pressure is on you. But I'm also looking at the AFC West and the Broncos and the Raiders. You can't afford to go 0-2 in that division because it's going to be a dogfight. You will not keep up with the Chiefs or the Chargers, and 0-2 is putting you in a real tough spot.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'll say both of those teams here. I'm gonna say also New England cannot go 0-2 either. New England, if they actually have any dreams of doing anything this year, they cannot lose that football game. And Dallas, I kind of wrote them off because of the injury here, but you have to find a way to win some games here. Even your division is not great.
Yeah, my thing with the Patriots is even if they do end up winning a few games, they're not going to be close to playoff contention this year. I really think this could be one of the worst years that we've seen in a long time for the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm looking ahead at the week 2 schedule here. What games sort of jump out to you and say, I'm interested in these contests right now?
Well, I think you got to go Thursday night with Chargers-Chiefs. I mean, that's a hell of a matchup. Mahomes, Herbert, should be high scoring. And then I like Monday night, too. Can the Titans bounce back against the Bills, who put on a show in the opener against the Rams?
Yeah, those are definitely fun here. Some other ones I have my eye on here. I think, obviously, underrated one in the early window on Sunday, Miami at Baltimore is going to be a good game.
Yeah, I think that's a good test for Miami. Their first game on the road against the Baltimore team, who's going to be in the playoff conversation. I definitely see that one too.
And the other one I think I have my eye on, the week 2 slate is not as strong as I initially thought it was going to be, but the second Monday night game with by the way, how weird is it we have a Monday night doubleheader in week 2?
You know what? I was going to just ask you that, and I'm glad you brought it up. Is this the first time we have a week 2 Monday night doubleheader, and if so, why? Do we know why?
I think it is. I think they're sort of experimenting here what they can do, because I know one game's on ESPN, one's on ABC, so they sort of overlap the games as opposed to having one directly after the other.
You know what? I don't love that.
Yeah.
I don't love that.
Yeah.
I'd rather have an extra game in that 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock slot. I really don't love the overlap. I would prefer, and it stinks for us on the East Coast, but give me a 7:15 and a 10 p.m. kick. Yeah, I'm watching at 10 p.m.
That's what they used to do on week 1. So it was that one game on the West Coast.
I'm not sure if I love the overlap here.
Yeah,
but listen, Mike, we all know this is going to happen. The overlap's going to be there, and people are still going to watch. I mean, you have your two devices going, and you'll be glued to the television set. So,
yeah, because basically, I think their theory is, one's going to be at halftime when the second game starts, then you flip to the game, and you can just try to pick which one you want to go with, depending if one is good and one's not. So they were testing that theory out.
Definitely. I think they're able to get away with this a little bit easier just because there's no West Coast teams involved, too.
Yeah, and
but very interesting. When I was looking at the schedule and I saw that, I said, wow, week 2 Monday nights. Very interesting.
Yeah, and I think the other underrated game I have on my calendar here, the Desperation Bowl here, as you mentioned, Arizona at the Raiders here. One of these teams is going to be 0-2 unless they pull the Colts and tie it here.
Yeah, no, one of those 2 teams definitely needs to win. I think I lean more towards Vegas in this one just because I think that offense is better than Kyler Murray and what Arizona has shown.
Absolutely, Joe. Thanks all the time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, I can you follow social media, keep up with some of your stuff.
Yeah, Mike, just give me a follow on Twitter at Joe _.
Do not forget the double.
Don't forget the double, DALOISIL.
Absolutely, Joe. Thanks all the time. I really appreciate it.
Mike, anytime. You know where to reach me.